Hello and welcome to the Crochet Circle podcast. This is episode 18, Sheer Joy, which is what I've been having all month, and I'll tell you all about it within the podcast. My name is Faye. I live in Cheshire in England for the time being, and I do this podcast on a monthly basis. It comes out on the first Friday of every month, religiously. It's usually out by about 10 o'clock every of those Fridays. You can also catch the show notes at www.thecrochetcircle.podbean.com, and I link to them through the YouTube channel as well, and that's where I put all of the information. So if you want the links to the patterns or you want to know the yarns that I'm using, the show notes are most definitely the best place to go to. We also have a wonderful Ravelry group for this podcast, and it's called the Crochet Circle podcast under Ravelry groups. Such a lovely bunch of people. I played catch up in there yesterday. I hadn't been in for a couple of weeks just because of my erratic lifestyle over the last month, and I just love the fact that you guys are not dependent on me being in there to keep things going. Everybody's full of chatter. It's the most supportive group, just a lovely bunch of folk. So yeah, if you haven't already joined the Ravelry group, go and have a look and see what's going on there. We've got some great discussions going, and there's some new content going into there that I'll talk about later in the podcast. I'm also on Instagram under crochet_circle_podcast. And I try and do wool related stuff or whatever I'm up to that I think is wool relatable onto there. And I also, as my business of Knit It, Hook It, Craft It, you can catch me on Instagram for that side of things, and that is Knit It, Hook It is where you can find me there. And on Ravelry I am Ma Dashper, and again all of that information is over at the show notes. I think that's all you need to know for now, isn't it? Should we crack on? Should we get into the body of it? Let's start with Old Dog New Tricks. You know, sometimes when you do things and you've done it that way for a long time and you never really stop to think, is that the best way? Am I doing that correctly? That's what happened to me in the last couple of months. I found that my ball winder was giving me a lot of what is often referred to as yarn barf in the middle of my yarn cakes, and to the point that because of my job I have to wind up quite a few cakes of yarn during any given week, and it was becoming really frustrating. So I was investigating buying a new ball winder and going for one of these fancy pants wooden ones, but they're £70-80. They're quite a large investment for something that, you know, I might use 5 or 6 times a week. But I was seriously looking at making that investment, and Beck from Wool Gathering was talking about maybe coming in with me as well, because she also has problems with her ball winder. And then I thought, well, I know I didn't spend a lot of money on it, but if we're both having problems, maybe there's a bigger issue here. And I finally looked at my ball winder in detail, and if you've got the same one that I have, it's red and cream coloured, and when you look at the circular part of it, it has 2 words on it, and it will say fasten and loosen. And my natural reaction is to wind my ball winder clockwise, because that's what my hand wants to do. Your hand automatically goes clockwise. And when I looked at the direction that it tells you to do it, to wind on to your ball, so clearly I did not read the instructions, you actually are meant to go anti-clockwise. And so I did 1 cake of yarn clockwise, so loosen, 1 cake of yarn anti-clockwise for fasten, and guess what? When you do it anti-clockwise, actually you get a really lovely cake of yarn. I'm the kind of girl though that thinks that I don't need to read the IKEA instructions to assemble furniture, so you know, maybe I should learn my lesson on this one and start reading things properly. I do the same with patterns sometimes when I'm crocheting and knitting, and I'm just like, ah yeah, I know what I'm doing, it's fine. And then I have to frog back. So yes, if you are also having problems with your ball winder, check what it says on it and try going anti-clockwise rather than clockwise, because you might just find that you're doing it the wrong way around, and that's why it's very tight. So when I do it the other way around, I get a really lovely cake from the ball winder. So clearly for kind of 2.5 years I've been doing it wrongly, and now I've sorted it. So good tip for you there: if you're having issues, try going the opposite way, or try reading the label like I didn't. So rather than just having finished objects this time round, I also have some unfinished objects, undone finished objects maybe, that might be a better way of putting it. For the Festival of Finishing craft along that I'm running at the moment, I had a serious dig through all of my crafting projects. What I found were loads of little squares when I've been playing about with pattern ideas, or there was something that I thought I was going to make and then it's never come to fruition, little rectangles and bits and pieces, or tension squares that I've used for swatching with, and I had loads of them, just bits and pieces. And I mentioned last time that Yael and her friends have a project called the Blanket of Hope and Love, and they will accept squares, rectangles of all different shapes and sizes, because they can then pull them together into a blanket. So I was ruthless. I went all the way through my crafting cupboards and I pulled out loads of bits and pieces, including what was my Shorelines blanket. I came to the conclusion that I just wasn't going to finish it off. I just lost my passion for the project. So instead I have woven in all of the ends, and it's going to head to Sweden and head to somebody via Yael and Hedvig and Emily, and it will go to somebody who genuinely needs a blanket in their life. So I've got a pile of stuff to send over to Yael, and when I was going through the bits and pieces that were, as I would put it, odds and sods from my crafting cupboards, I also came across 2 shawls that I was never going to wear, and they were just sat in my cupboard, so I frogged them both. One of which I still have sat in the cake of yarn, which I will, or ball of yarn, which I will put into granny squares, and I'll send them over to Sweden as well. And then the other one, which was a bit of a British breeds project, so I tried 3 different British breeds in a shawl, and whilst I loved working with the different breeds, actually I wasn't overly enamoured with the finished object. So I frogged it all back, had loads and loads of little balls of yarn all over the place, and I decided to make little granny squares that again could be put into blankets by Yael and her friends. So she's got a load of granny squares, which is far more use than a shawl that would just be sitting in my cupboard doing nothing. So although they don't really look like they're finished objects, there's nothing more that I can do with them, because it's a heap of bits of squares and rectangles of yarn, but there's nothing more I can do with them, so it's time to get them passed on to Yael, and they can be her finished object pile instead of mine. So they'll all be heading to Sweden shortly, as soon as I have worked with the wool that I frogged from the other shawl. So that'll be a lovely big pile going off and going to be used for something way more positive than I was doing with it. So that didn't take too long, but it was quite a lot of weaves to end in. Weaves to end in. It was a lot of weaves to end in. It was quite a lot of ends to weave in, which I'm gathering via the internet lots of people have issues with and really hate weaving their ends in. I know some people really don't mind it, but I don't mind, I try and do it as I go along. I find that that is the best option. So, and what I mean by that is that I will crochet it in as I'm going along, and not too tightly, so that I can still move it a little while I'm blocking it, and then generally that only gives me one end to finish off with that I need to sew in properly. So that makes my life a lot easier. But I can see why, if you had a massive blanket with loads and loads of colour changes, you wouldn't be so happy about having to weave in all those ends. So that was the first set of finished objects that I had, and that was really nice, chill out crocheting, and just I really enjoy the act of charity crafting and knowing that what I'm doing is going to make somebody else happy or make their life a little more pleasant. So that was a really nice project to do. The other thing that I finished is a pair of socks, and these are the Kipper socks from Pom Pom Quarterly. It's issue 1. They actually redid issue 1 this last quarter, because Pom Pom Quarterly has been going for 5 years now, and I really loved the socks that they had. And the previous version had the pattern going all the way down the foot, which that just would have been too much for me, but I love the effect that I've got and the yarn, which is Life in the Long Grass. It was one of the subscription colourways that I got, and it's called Chlorophyll, and you may recognise it because I also used it in my Tunisian shawl with that dark orange, real burnt orange colour with it as well. It was the Ocasso shawl by Sol Rencoret. So, loving these socks. I haven't yet worn them, because what happens, of course, is I make these things and then I have to show them off on the podcast, and then I can't wear them because they've got to be beautiful before they've got to be beautiful on the podcast before I show them off. So I'm now allowed to wear these, and I'm heading off on holiday shortly, so these will be in my holiday suitcase. It's a really lovely yarn to work with, the Life in the Long Grass. It's 80% merino, 20% nylon, and it's already soft to work with, but it really softens up well. I've used it across quite a few projects now, both knitted and crocheted, and I will do a proper review on this yarn because I really like it, and I love the way that she gets her dyes to filter through. The speckled effect it's just beautiful. I'm really pleased with it, and not a colour that I liked when it first came out of the subscription box. I was a bit meh about it, and I have since completely changed my mind. They are very cheerful socks, very bright greens and little bits of luminous yellow in there, and purples and little hints of orange and rust. It's definitely not a colourway I would have bought in the shop, but because it was part of the subscription, I have definitely grown to love it. So that was that, and what else do I have? This time I'm going to remember what is behind me, which is what is on Claude, my mannequin. Claude is wearing something else that came from the Pom Pom Quarterly remake, and it's called the Netherton Pullover. And this was also a Stash Bingo project, so you may remember I still am doing Stash Bingo, which is I pulled out 6 loads of yarn that were some of my oldest yarn sat in my stash. I numbered them, and then I had to use random number generator to dictate which project it was that I was working on next, and the one that came up was this, which is I had a stack of, I think it was 500 grams of the Artisano Super Wash in double knitting, and I can no longer get that yarn, so I wanted to make sure that whatever I made from it I wasn't going to run out, and this little cropped pullover seemed like the ideal use. It used just under 350 grams. So I've still got some wool to play with, but I'm thinking about some mittens or a cowl or something that will match in with it. I really enjoy doing this pullover. I tend to be doing more and more garment crocheting and knitting at the moment, and probably more knitting than crochet, and that's not because I prefer it in particular. What I'm finding is that by doing garment knitting, it's teaching me an awful lot about the construction of a garment, and I'm then able to apply that to my crochet garments that I make. So it's a really helpful tool and technique for me to understand how raglan works, and then how I could incorporate that into a cardigan that's crocheted, or a jumper that's crocheted. So it's really interesting for me, and I love understanding more about how something is made up and the construction of it. So I whizzed through this jumper. I was also doing it as part of the Summer of Romance Cal, which is being run by Claudia from the Crochet Luna podcast and Clarissabeth from the Crochet Cakes podcast. And it's all about your favourite couple, maybe through literature or a movie or a TV series. You had to pick your favourite couple and then somehow represent them either with the pattern or the yarn choice. My absolute favourite couple cut across both literature and TV. So it's Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet. And I love them in the book, I really do, but I think the BBC adaptation with Colin Firth it's just beautiful. I really love it. I love how feisty Elizabeth is in that, and how wet Colin Firth can be at times. I love the way that their relationship plays across the screen in the BBC adaptation. And then the yarn seemed to work well because the colours were a good replication of a jacket that Colin Firth wears, and the little boxy nature of the pullover is not dissimilar to the style that Elizabeth Bennet wore. Again, it was little cropped jackets, and it's very sweet. And of course the jumper is called Netherton. I'm really crowbarring it in here, but Netherton isn't too dissimilar to Netherfield, which is where Mr. Bingley's estate is. He owns Netherfield estate, so I feel fully justified in my choice of pattern and yarn and the couple that I chose. And so yeah, that was my knitted object for their knit or crochet along, and I've just started a crocheted object as well, which I'll talk about, so you'll hear about one of my other favourite couples that I just love and adore. They're very different from Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet. So I managed to do that fairly quickly, that pullover. I've done that within this month. I don't think I had started it last time I recorded the podcast, and because we've been here, there and everywhere, we've had quite a lot of car time, and I've had quite a bit of time where I've been able to sit and talk with friends and family, but also knit at the same time. So I've been able to get through quite a few objects. One of the other ones I couldn't resist. I should not have done this last week because I had so many other things I should have been doing, but I bought Simply Crochet magazine, and for those that are watching, for those on audio, I might take a photo of my ridiculous top, because my top is just cactus, it's cacti, it's just full of them. Love it. It's white with loads of green cactuses on it, and Simply Crochet magazine had a free kit for a little cactus, and I've called her Cynthia. And Matthew was out for the night, and I went to pick him up, and he said, "Oh, have you had a good evening?" And I was like, "Oh, it's very constructive evening, Matthew, very constructive." He said, What have you done? And I'd taken the cactus in the car with me. I showed him, and he looked at me like I was as mad as a box of frogs. I couldn't help it. I spent 3 hours crocheting up Cynthia the Cactus, and I just love her. She's such a cheery little soul, and she's going to be on my display stand when I do different yarn shows. She's going to have all my blocking pins in her. But she just wants to wave at you and say hola. Oh, she's so cute, and she's going to have lots of friends. She can't just be on her own as a cactus, so I'm going to make her some pals, and they'll all have little blocking pins in them. Oh, I think I may need some time off. I think I'm very tired. So I just have two other finished objects that I've done, and they are related. If you follow me on Instagram at Knit It Hook It, you might have seen the bag that I'm about to show you. It's called Hove, and it's a beach bag. And let me pull it up. Ooh, it's full of yarn. I need to stuff it out so that I could show you how it looks when it's got stuff in it. And because I'm out in the office, I thought, oh, I should really put a beach towel in it and show it off that way. But instead I've just shoved it full of yarn and wool, so it's actually really quite heavy. But Hove is made out of Erica Knight's Gossypium cotton, and it takes just 300 grams to make, and you need three different colours to pull the beach bag together. And again, I've used the O-bag handles on it, and also the O-bag inner, which is amazing. I really like this. It's waterproof, which means that you can take your bag down to the beach. The cotton will survive whatever you throw at it, but whatever you have inside your bag is waterproofed from the bottom up. And it's got a really neat drawstring, so you don't have everything falling out of your bag. So that got finished off, and I've adapted the pattern ever so slightly from this, and Beck is pattern testing this for me now. So this uses Intarsia crochet, which is something that I've come to love. I didn't love it about a year ago. I tried making a cushion with it and I just didn't like the technique, mainly because I put myself right in at the deep end, and I should have tried on a much simpler project to begin with, and I didn't. So I've come back and I absolutely love the technique of Intarsia crochet. So hence doing this design, and I have a few others up my sleeve as well. But one of the things that I've been working on so that others don't fall into the same pitfall that I did with Intarsia crochet is I've designed a little purse, and this is up on my blog at Knit It Hook It as a free of charge pattern. And what it does is it shows you the techniques that you require for Intarsia as a flat piece of fabric, so working in rows, and then it allows you to add a zip quickly and then sew up the seams. It takes less than 2 hours to make this, and the beauty of it is what you're effectively making is your tension square for the Hove beach bag. But rather than just having, like I had, which are now being sent over to Yalta, Sweden, rather than just having another tension square lying about the house, I wanted it to be something that was practical and useful. So it's large enough to hold your car keys and your credit card. So when you head to the beach, you pop them in there and then it goes into your Hove beach bag. And it just allows you to double check whether Intarsia crochet is something that you like or not. And with this little purse design, the Hove purse, you're only working with 3 balls of yarn, which is really good practice. With the Hove beach bag, you would move up to 5, which makes your yarn management a little more difficult, but still very manageable. I'm working on another project at the moment which has 13 balls of yarn on it. It's a lot more difficult, but worth it. The effect is beautiful. So yeah, give it a go. If you've never tried Intarsia crochet before, I give you 3 really good pointers on the things that you need to look for when you're doing Intarsia in rows. And you've got the chart for the Hove purse. So it just allows you to check it out and do your tension swatch rather than wasting any of your yarn and any of your time. Make sure that it's the right technique for you before you go on and buy loads of yarn for another project. I'll provide links into the show notes for that. I was writing the blog post up last night, so that is ready to go. So yeah, that was another finished object ready. So to celebrate the fact that it is my 40th next week, and the fact that Matthew and I are going on holiday, what I wanted to do was make the pattern available to Crochet Circle listeners and Knit It Hook It customers free of charge. So it will be free on Ravelry for a period of time. That will start on the 10th of July, my birthday, and then it will, I'll probably keep that running until the end of the month, and thereafter it will be £3.50 for the pattern. So if you like the Hove Beach Bag and you fancy giving Intarsia Crochet a go, try the purse out, download the pattern from Ravelry, and yeah, good luck with it. I'd love to see anybody that makes it. It's a really quick bag to crochet up. This only takes about 15 to 16 hours in total, and it's a very easy pattern to remember. So once you've started the Intarsia, as long as you've got the techniques down, actually it's really simple to make. And Intarsia is one of those things that can be a little scary to begin with, but it's definitely worth persevering. Read the blog post if you're interested and take your cue from there, because if you stick to the 3 main points, you should be fine with what you produce, and yeah, you'll be fine. So yes, that will run from the 10th of July to the end of the month, and thereafter it will be a paid for pattern, but I'll pop it up on the Ravelry thread on Instagram for the Crochet Circle and on Knit It Hook It as well. 40. And thank you everybody, I meant to add this, that came back to me on hair, extra hair growing in. Apparently I'm not the only wolf girl in the world. Jo also has the same issue. Catherine, thank you. Catherine's resolve for this was to send me some imac. So it may come to that point where I have to imac my forehead to not be wolf girl. And somebody else, I can't remember who it was, and it was on YouTube, she said that she had straight hair, and then she hit her 40s and her hair went curly, and then when she hit her 50s it started to straighten out again. So I wonder if that'll happen to me. I'd love to have curly hair. I've always had pretty much dead straight hair and quite thin, so curly would definitely make it bouncier, especially if it's coming all the way down my face. Wolf girl with curly hair. Nice. So thank you for letting me know that I'm not the only one with hair issues as I hit into my my next stage of life. Good to know I'm not alone. One of the things I meant to mention with the Hove Beach Bag is I will be remaking it in another cotton. The Gossypium cotton that Erica does is beautiful, but other people may want a slightly cheaper option on that. So I'm also going to remake it in the Yarn and Colours must-have range. Now I came across these people via Sarah at Black Sheep Bulls. She was telling me about this guy that's running his own yarn company out of Holland, I believe it is, and he has got the most amazing range of colours. There's over 100 colours in the cottons that he does. He also does wool and acrylic mixes, and this one's a slightly lighter yarn than the cotton that Erica does, and it's 125 metres for 50 grams. The colours are just incredible, so I've chosen 3 that I think complement really nicely. So there's a salmony pink, quite a nice rose pink, and a peachy colour. So I will remake the Hove bag in that. My intention is also to do a yarn review on all of his range. He very kindly sent me over a load of yarn to test out and review, and I have to say I'm impressed. I said last time round that not all cotton is created equal, and I think that's right. Quite a lot of it hurts my hands when I'm working with it, but this stuff, having not worked with it yet, but it seems beautifully soft. It's 100% mercerised cotton. Looking forward to having a play with it and see how it works. It's also made in Europe. So yeah, I'll let you know how I get on with this lot. And I'm not sure I'll have another beach bag to show you next time round, because I've got another beach bag pattern I want to do, but yeah, we'll see. I'm going on holiday, maybe I'll just crochet for 7 days. Do you know, that would be bliss. I would love that, but I don't think Matthew would be overly happy with that prospect. So let's look at some whips. I mentioned a moment ago that I had done another stash bingo thing with my Medicine Paloma, and also that I wanted to do a crocheted project for the Summer of Romance Cal that Claudia and Clarissa Beth are doing. And so I started a shawl the other day, and it's been really quick to work on. And it is the Franz shawl by Joanne Scrace. So I did another random number generate, and what came up was my beautifully soft possum yarn. This is by Touch, and I bought this when I was over in New Zealand almost a couple of years back, and it has oranges and deep pinks and going through to a mid raspberry pink, almost a reddy colour in it. It's absolutely beautiful, and I wish, like, if I could send you a little woolly hug down the line to show you how soft this is. It's incredible. Even to the point that when I showed it to Jenny at the weekend, she wasn't sure about the colours, and then she felt the yarn and suddenly she liked it a little bit more. And in case you're wondering, the colours are orange, red and pink, and very watermelony. Some of you will have got that reference straight away, because watermelons leads in rather nicely to who my next couple are for the Summer of Romance crochet along. It has to be Johnny and Baby from Dirty Dancing. Oh, I love that film. When I'm knackered out, when I've just come back from a yarn show and the next day and I've emptied the vehicle and I'm ready to just sit and chill and do nothing, Dirty Dancing is my go-to movie. I could pretty much give you it word for word, the entire thing. I love Dirty Dancing. So when I got this yarn in my stash bingo, and I think I'd already paired it up with the Franz shawl anyway, I figured it has to go for the Summer of Romance crochet along, because it's watermelon and I'm currently carrying a watermelon. So many of you will probably not get that reference, but I just love it, love it, love it. And I'm using really lovely little stitch marker that was sent to me by Hannah from the Cozy Cottage podcast. So it's come all the way from Florida. So thank you, Hannah, it's lovely. Yeah, this is such a quick shawl to make up. It's a repetitive 2 rows, and once you've got that in your memory bank, then that's it. You don't actually need to take the pattern out with you, and it's one of those that starts and then increases and increases and increases. So of course each row takes longer to do every single time, but what it does mean is that I will be able to use up every single part of this skein of yarn pretty much, which suits my nature. I don't really like wastage. I don't like it when a pattern tells you you need like 200 grams and then what you actually need is 110 grams. Or, you know, I don't mind that so much when there's then another supporting pattern like the hove purse and the bag where you're using up the remnants of your yarn. I did the same with the bag and the little paraphernalia purse that I did for Take Two. That would use up 200 grams. So I'm really loving the pattern. I'm not sure if it's something that I'm going to wear at the end of it. I'm not entirely... I love the pattern, I'm just not entirely convinced that the colours are right for me, but it will go straight to Jenny if I don't like it. I said this to her and she gave me a little look of, I'll accept that, that'll be fine. So I reckon that because this is a nice repetitive pattern, this will be a good one for the car journey as Matthew and I go off on holiday. Because it's just nice and easy and it's not one where you have to look down a lot or read, so it's not so bad for a car journey. So come next podcast I will probably have that in my finished objects pile. and it's using a 6mm hook. Now, although the pattern calls for 2 skeins of double knitting yarn, I'm actually using 1 skein of 4-ply because it's quite fluffy, it's got quite a lot of bounce to it, this yarn, and actually I quite like the slightly open texture that I'm getting. Also, it's extremely warm yarn, so the idea of it being really dense and being that warm, I think it would be like wearing a radiator. So to have a slightly more open structure, I thought the pattern looked good for it, and I think it's probably more practical as well. But I'll feed back, you'll get to see that one next month. Then this morning I started, as you do, plenty to do, and whilst I was having my morning cups of tea, plural, it's never just one, I figured I would start another project again, and it's one that I can do when I'm in the car on the way up. So I keep on referring to this because Matthew and I are away at the end of this week. Which is kind of scary because it's Tuesday, it's now Tuesday afternoon, it's Tuesday lunchtime. Podcast has to be edited down and ready to go on ideally Thursday night, because we leave first light Friday morning, and we've got about a 9-10 hour car journey ahead of us as we make our way up to the west coast of Scotland. So I have got lots of car time ahead of me. Of course I'll have to do driving as well, which I don't mind, I love driving, but it means that even if we share the driving, I've still got maybe 4 to 5 hours of crochet time in the car. So I wanted to choose some projects that are easy to memorise, so I don't need to keep on looking down, but also are ultimately probably going to be practical for when I get to the end of my journey, and during my holiday I'll have stuff that I can probably wear. So it's the Evesham socks that I am making, and they are from the Crochet Yeah book by Kat Golden and Joanne Scrace. I've actually made these before, and I made them with Rachel Coopy's Socks Yeah yarn, which is I think 75% merino, 25% nylon, and they're lovely to wear. They've got a real, almost like a silkiness to them, but I find that they slouch quite a bit, and I have a working theory that if I use a yarn which has got a little more fibrousness to it, so it's a little toothier, then I think it's more likely to hug around my leg and stay up better. I mean, I know it can be more difficult to get a really neat fit on your foot with crochet socks, but they're so lovely and warm. I really like wearing them, and I've worn these a lot over the last year or so. So I'm replicating the pattern using exactly the same hook size, exactly the same number of stitches, but I'm just using a different yarn, and the one that I'm testing is the Regia 4 colour. And I'm enjoying working with it. I mean, I've probably only done 6 different rows or so. It's got a slight variegation to it. I dare say it'd be a beautiful self-striping yarn if you were doing knitted socks with it, but I really love the effect. It's almost like a mottled effect that I'm getting with it as a crocheted project. I'll add photos into the show notes, but it's really lovely, and it goes from teals into quite a really dark blue, almost black, and then this kind of blushed mauve colour in through it. It's lovely, and it does already feel a little sturdier and a little more likely to stay up on my leg than the Socks Yeah one. I'm doing this in part for Claudia's podcast. She's got a really good segment on the go which is all about socks and crocheted socks, and it's called Sock It To Me, and she's working with Tamara Goodwin, who we all know and love, and they're doing great work on socks. And I said I would test run different types of yarn on the same pattern just to see what the differences are. if there are any at all. So I'll be able to report back on that and report back to Claudia and Tamara and let them know what's happening with the different yarns with this pattern. But I would imagine, I think these socks only took me about 5 hours to make, so feasibly I could have a sock by the end of my epic journey to Scotland. So looking forward to that, and of course it gives me another pair of socks for the winter time. So I think this regular yarn is quite widely available. I bought it when I was over in Germany at Christmas time when I was in Munich. And the number is 02261 if anyone's interested, but I'll try and provide a link to it in the show notes. I'd be interested to see how it knits up as well, because like I say, I think it would have a really lovely self-striping effect to it. So that was another work in progress. None of these were in my lineup for festival finishing. These are new projects that I've started, but I actually was at a point where I didn't have any crochet on the hook other than design work that I'm working on, and I can't always show that on the podcast and talk about that on the podcast. So I thought it was a good excuse to hook on a couple of other projects. But talking of festival finishing, I have been working on, so I have kind of 3.5 major projects I want to finish by the end of August for the festival finishing. And rather than me doing a little bit on each of them, I think I would find that quite frustrating, because progress can seem very slow when you tackle a project in that way. And as I discovered with making that pullover, actually if you just have one big thing on the go, it feels like you get through it quite rapidly. And so that's what I've been doing with one of my festival of finishing works in progress. Now this has been on the go for quite some time, and it's a cross stitch of the Doctor Who TARDIS with some fleur-de-lis around it, and it's quite an undertaking. It's not particularly complicated, you know, as far as cross stitches go, but the fleur-de-lis element does take quite a bit of brain space to work out where you are in the pattern. And this will eventually become a cushion, so even when I finish the cross stitch element of it, that's not a finished object, because I then have to actually make the cushion. Now I think I'm going to take this on holiday with me, but what that means is that I may also take my sewing machine and make the cushion and come back south with a finished object. Maybe, we'll see. We've got so much stuff to pack. We'll see how much space there is, but I may be taking a sewing machine with me on holiday. But certainly by the time I come and do the next podcast, again I would like to think that this will be a finished object, and it will be sat on the sofa in our kitchen, which is where it's meant to be. So pleased to have made some really good progress on that. I reckon I've maybe got about another 5 hours worth of cross stitching to do on that. And the issue that I've found with cross stitching is it's quite intense, and it seems like progress is so much slower than crochet, because what you're doing is minute, and you know, it takes a long time just to do a few stitches, whereas with crochet a few stitches quickly bulks up to something that's very tangible and you can see very quick results. This has just been a much slower burn, and I know it will be beautiful when I've finished it, but I have to keep on going back to crochet because that's where the quick rewards and quick wins are for me. And then I have one final work in progress, which I probably need to explain a little bit about. Last year for my birthday, Jenny and Fraser and her kids very kindly gave me an experience day, and that experience day was to go and learn how to shear sheep. And you can imagine when I opened that card, that is the ideal present for me. Learning a skill, getting to stand and talk to the shepherd about his craft and his way of thinking and his life, and yeah, it was just fantastic. So the whole thing is done by a company called A Good Day Out, and I'll provide all the information within the show notes. The farm was based in Wales, also in just outside Brecon, and it was such a good day. Jenny came along with me as well, and the whole premise is it's fleece to felt. So you learn how to shear the sheep, and then you use some of that wool to do some wet felting, and that's exactly what we did. And I absolutely loved it. Now there were 4 of us there, so the first couple did the sheep shearing first, and then Jenny and I were doing the wet felting, and then we swapped out after lunch. So you start by wet felting the base, and then they give you different coloured wool to put on top and to wet felt on top. So what I've done is the base, the breed were Welsh Mountain, which have got really beautiful creamy colouring to their wool, to their fleece, and almost at times a kind of like a champagne pinkness to it. Really beautiful sheep. And then I have coloured it and created like a sea and beach scene. And the reason that this is a work in progress is because I think what I'm going to do is do either some machine sewing on it or some hand embroidery to really pull out the waves and the seashore and pull it together as a finished piece. And then I don't quite know how I'm going to frame it, but I'm going to do something with it because I really like what I've created, and I like the vision that I have for the final piece in my head. And it was such a cracking day out, and I really want to be able to show it off as like a really nice memory and hang it up in my office. So what I might do is try and find a piece of driftwood when I'm up on holiday on the Isle of Harris and the Outer Hebrides, and try and make a driftwood frame for this piece. But if you're looking for an unusual birthday present for somebody, or a present, I heartily recommend this course. There are only, of course, certain times of the year that you can do, which is why it's taken almost a year for us to be able to get in and do the shearing. But it was so much fun, and I learned so much about the industry, where it's heading to from a shepherding farming point of view. So I wanted to do a quick update on the Festival of Finishing. I am loving seeing all of the projects are coming through, and it's been really funny to see that other people have had the exact same experience that I have had. You've forgotten about projects that are hiding in your house, and it's not until you really go searching and really get into the depths of your house that you find all of the bits and pieces that you had completely forgotten about. Now, by my reckoning, we've got about 50 finished objects in there already, which is fantastic given that we are just 1 month through the 3-month craft along. Yeah, it's been fantastic, the response that we've had to it, and some people have just really gone for it. Lisa, I'm thinking about you in particular. She went through her house like a tornado, listed everything out, photographed it all, worked out what she was going to do with each of them, and I think she's almost at the 3. I think, Lisa, you had 23 different projects that you were either frogging, donating, finishing off for the festival, and I think you're almost at the end of it. She's been doing incredible work and great at uploading it onto the Ravelry thread and using #FestivalOfFinishing on Instagram as well. Really impressed with the way that she's approached it and the speed that she's able to finish off her projects. It's incredible. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, I was going to put this out on Instagram to begin with, but actually I really wanted to hold it back because the first time really that I wanted to push it forward was to give it proper credit from within the podcast. I received 2 lovely messages from fellow podcasters. The first one came from Claudia at the Crochet Luna podcast, and she wants to match fund $1 for every £1 that I'm putting in for a finished object, and it will go to Knit for Peace as well. And the other person that came forward it's two people, but it's Caroline and Kathy from Evertotes. You might know Caroline. She is 1/3 of the Fibre Friends podcast, one of my new favourite podcasts on the knitting side. It's just brilliant, knitting and needlework. And Caroline and Kathy, are going to donate $1 Canadian up to $100 for every finished object that hits the Instagram thread or the Festival of Finishing thread. I've said before, I'm not an overly emotional person, I'm quite rational about things, but when these emails came through, I was so happy that other people wanted to help and could see the worth of donating to Knit for Peace, and really making sure that people both in the UK and around the world have got warm clothing and are able to keep warm at night, and that we can really help to distribute a lot more clothing to people that really need it. So by my reckoning, every finished object that now hits that thread, thanks to Claudia, Caroline and Kathy, it's now worth £2.37, give or take. That was going on yesterday's exchange rates rather than just £1, and that's a massive difference. So we've got a real chance here to really increase the positivity in people's lives, and for you guys to finish your finished objects off and do some good, because we'll donate that money. By my reckoning, we have about 50 projects that have already been finished off, so that's a huge amount of money that has already been raised for Knit for Peace. And let's see, I would love to get to that 150 mark come the 31st of August, so you've still got lots of time to get your finished objects out and done. They just need to have come from your long-term work in progress pile and become a finished object before that deadline. It doesn't matter if it's one of a pair of socks or some doilies that you were making. It's not about the size of the project, it's about the act of finishing, diminishing your WIP pile and making sure that we're donating to charity. So thank you guys, thank you to Caroline, Kathy and Claudia. I was just speechless when I got the emails through. I was saying to Matthew, people are just so lovely that they want to get in on this action as well and will donate their own money. Yeah, it's been lovely. And on the back of that, with Matthew's new company, he's decided that he's going to donate a certain percentage of the profit out to charity as well. I'm not sure if he's worked out which charity he'll work with or whether he'll pick a different one every month, but on the back of us doing this, he's now setting that up as part of the principal ethos for his business. So it's nice that we've informed his opinion as well. Thank you. Keep them coming in. I'm loving seeing them all. I'm kind of splurging on bits in Ravelry and Instagram just because life is really full on at the moment. So you might find that you don't hear from me for a little while, and then I'll be in there liking everything, commenting on everything. And that's just the way it has to be for me probably throughout the rest of the summer because of all the stuff that I've got on. But I am looking and I'm loving what you're up to. Please keep it up right the way to the 31st of August. Let's see how much cash we can raise for this. Thank you. That segues rather nicely to feeding the habit. I went to Woolfest. Actually, I went to the John Harbin Mill open weekend first. I did get yarn, but I got yarn for designs because I'm doing quite a lot of stuff with John and Juliet's wool, which it just makes me really happy that I'm able to do designs with their stuff. And that was fabulous. I put loads of photos and videos and stuff on Instagram. I'm going to see if I can add them up onto Ravelry as well, because I'm very aware that the people that are on Ravelry sometimes miss out on the content that I put onto Instagram. So I'm going to try and rectify that whilst I'm doing the editing of the podcast today and tomorrow. So yeah, that was a fantastic day. We went there and back in one day, and besides going and looking at the mill, which I always love doing because you learn something new every single time, I also we went and checked out a village to potentially live in, and we've struck it off the list, but just that process of getting to North Devon, North Somerset, and being able to say, okay, would we want to live here, feels like we're starting to make movement into the next stage of our life, and moving out of Cheshire and moving down to a coastal area. So that was really exciting. And then I went to Woolfest, and that was second to last weekend of June, I think. That was great fun again. I really enjoy that festival. It's very sheepy, like really sheepy. You've got the sheep soundtrack going the whole way around the festival. It's all you can hear is meh, meh, meh. It's really good fun, and it's very fibre based. So it's not just knitting. There was a lot of knitting, of course, but a lot of hand felting, a lot of spinning, quite a lot of dyeing as well, which you tend to see a little less of, but a lot of dyeing equipment people, which is one of the things I bought because, you know, it's another thing that I need to try out properly. I've done a little bit of natural dyeing, but I haven't done anything with Procyon dyes, and that's what I bought, so I'll be having a play with them. I didn't buy any yarn other than a sock blank, which I'm going to use to put the dye onto, so I will have a colour palette on a sock blank which will show me how it dyed up, which I thought was quite a clever way of doing it. And then if I get to a point where I don't need that, then I'm just going to have a really random sock blank to work from at some point. So I did buy that, but it was for a very specific purpose, to help me with the dyeing process. And what did I get? I did buy some bits and pieces. Probably my favourite thing of all, I might not be able to get it out, or I can. I treated myself. You'll be sick of me saying it's my 40th birthday this year, and I'm not saying it because that I've got an issue with it at all. I just think it's quite a cool thing to celebrate. I'm not at all fussed about the fact that I'm turning 40. I just find it's a good excuse to buy myself some really nice things, including a silver crochet hook. I have been eyeing these up for quite some time. They're done by a lady called Lynn Roberts, and her company is Lynn Roberts Designs, and she had a number of them there. And normally I would have said I would buy a 4mm crochet hook as my go-to, but actually I'm doing a lot of work with 4-ply yarn and a 3mm hook at the moment, so that's what I bought. It's got a beautiful twist on the end of the crochet hook, so it's a straight one, because what it is a tube of silver that's then got the hook in and the flattened bit to make it slightly more ergonomic. And I was able to stand and talk to Lynn for a good 20 minutes, and her friend as well, who's helping her out on the stand, who is really lovely ladies, very engaging, and it meant that I could test out the 3mm hooks that she had on the stand and make sure I got the one that was the right weight for me and the right feel for me. And since I got this about a week and a half ago, I haven't used any other 3mm hook. I've just been loving working with this. It gets to a really nice temperature in your hand, and the hook on it is really nice as well. It's quite, you'll know what I mean when I say it's a really hooky hook. I find that sometimes with the wooden hooks, I find that the point is too pointy on the hook end, and sometimes with the plastic or the metal ones, it is pointy, but there isn't enough depth, the hook doesn't go in enough. And the ones that Lynn produces are really, really lovely. And to me, this is a real heirloom piece. This is something that will only ever leave the house if I'm going on holiday, so I'll be taking this to Scotland with me. But I would never take this out of the house to just take it as an in the car project if we're going away for the day or away for the weekend, because I would really not want to lose this. And she also sells lovely little leather pouches to hold the hook in, so I treated myself to one of those as well, because my feeling was if it's in a bulky leather pouch, I will always know where it is and I will always know where to put it back to, whereas if it's just a silver hook, it could get mixed up elsewhere. So it goes in here and it gets very well looked after. But I know a few people have said to me that they've been eyeing up these hooks, and I've used it, like I say, pretty much religiously over the last week and a half, and I'm really, really loving it. So I would say if you are going to, if you're UK based and you're going to a yarn show at all this year and Linda's going to be there, go and have a little look, because I don't think it's a purchase that you would regret making. And if you've got a special birthday or something coming up, then this is a really lovely prezi. Yeah, but just test them out and see which one you like. As she put it, it's a bit like choosing your wand. Your wand will choose you, and that's how I felt about this hook. It was the last one I tried, and I knew it was going to be the one. It was calling to me. But yeah, really lovely present. The other thing that I bought was a set of knitting needles. Now I was looking for crochet hooks because they had them last year, but they didn't have them this year, and they're made out of twigs. I think that's the best way I can describe them. They've had the bark taken off them and they've been sanded down and smooth, and they're really knobbly and crooked. You would never use these for knitting needles. And the same with the crochet hooks, because you couldn't have said it's a 6mm crochet hook or it's a 7mm, because it didn't really work on that basis. So I was a little gutted that they didn't have the crochet hooks, because I wanted one and Lynn wanted one as well, and I couldn't get us one. So I picked up the knitting needles instead, because I figured, although I won't use these will be really nice, part of a display on my stand, and also as part of my kind of photography setup when I'm doing knitwear stuff. So I thought they look nice and they're really tactile and smooth. So that was another little treat. And one of the things I love about Woolfest in particular is you tend to get some more vintage stalls. So there's always a second-hand book stall. They're usually at Fibre East as well, actually. And you get Eliza Conway with all of her vintage bric-a-brac and paraphernalia. There's also the button people who've got gorgeous stuff, and I got some nice little buttons from them. But I spent quite a bit of time at the book stall. There were some hilarious crochet books in there. My favourite one, I'll add a photo into the show notes, was, I can't remember what it was called, but it was a gentleman on the front cover with his really like funky old crochet, and he's got mad curly hair and he's smoking a pipe. I just love the idea that this is a book from probably mid to late 70s, and he's potentially about to start his crochet, but he's got his pipe on the go as well. I really liked it. I didn't buy it. I would have done, but it was £12, and I thought £12 is just a little too dear for something that is a bit of a joke. So I asked the stallholder and they said I could take a photo of it instead, which is what I did. The one that I did pick up is called Finishing Techniques for Crochet. And this was £7.50, it retails for £12.99. Now this isn't a book that I have seen before, but it's actually really interesting. So I know there's been quite a bit of chatter over the Dora Orenstein ones, which are fantastic again for giving you techniques. This one gives you all sorts of information on using colour, on cuffs, bands, edgings, adding pockets. It's really very, very detailed. And whilst some of the projects might be not to my taste and a little old-fashioned, actually the techniques that are inside don't date. So that's one of the reasons I picked it up. So if you were looking for a good book that will teach you some of the techniques that you might need for designing garments, I would say this is a really good call. It's a UK book as well, so you don't have, if you're UK based, you don't have the issue with the crossover of terminology. It's from 2009, and it goes through getting started, producing perfect crochet fabrics, creating a professional finish, cuff bands, edgings and pockets, using colour, creating shapes and patterns. Really, really decent book. So that is Finishing Techniques for Crochet by Pauline Turner. I'll add the ISBN number for that into the show notes, and if I get time I'll also have a quick Google search and see if it's still available anywhere. I don't know if it's still in print given that it's now 8 years old, I'm not sure. But yeah, I will be putting that one to good use, I would have thought. I mentioned in the last podcast that I'd bought a larger project bag, and it's a really lovely one. It's come from Sarah Hazel, who's a crochet designer. She designs knitwear as well, but I always keep a little eye out on her crochet wear. I've actually got one of her shawls that I need to crochet up. I thought I was going to start that instead of the Franz project, but then I remembered Stash Bingo and thought I'd better crack on with Stash Bingo. Really cute little bag. It's big enough for me to fit a sweater project in, and given that I've got 2 sweater projects that I want to start over the coming month, I bought myself a couple of bags, and it's got really bright colourful sewing bobbins on the top of it, really lovely purple zip. It's just one of those really nice project bags that I want to use, and I want to go to the project that's inside of it. It sounds daft, doesn't it? But that is definitely a thing for me now. If a project is in a nice bag and I've got all my bits and pieces together in one, or I've got it all in my pinny, the bag makes me want to work on the project a little more. That, and I've started using a progress keeper so I can see how far I'm going from each session that I'm using that, from each session that I'm doing that project, and that is definitely helping me as well. So that arrived, I think, yeah, I talked about it in the last podcast, and then it arrived the next day, which quite often happens. And I also received a lovely, lovely parcel from Claudia at the Crochet Luna podcast. She said she was going to send me something. I wasn't quite prepared for what she sent. Like, she's a crazy lady. And she sent me a new book which has just come out, I believe, and it is Step Into Crochet by Ron Strong. Now, Ron is a bit of a crochet sock guru in America. He works a lot with Interweave Publishing, and this book is absolutely full, jam-packed with really good information on crocheting socks. It's got loads of patterns in there, and the one that I have pulled out as my first go to make, let me just get to the right page, are called the Azalea socks, and they're just little shorty crochet socks, but they've got a really nice honeycomb pattern on them. And I've not done anything with crochet shorty socks before, so I haven't done knitted ones either, but I can really see the benefit of them throughout the summer months, so they're going to be the first ones I will do from this book. But again, it's got all sorts of really good information on heel toe cuff construction, choosing the right yarn, it goes through the basics of sock construction. It's a really good book. And I think what I'll do is make a couple of pairs from this, and then I will properly review this book and let you know what I think of it, let you know how the patterns work out. And next month we've got another book review, which is Vicky Brown's sock book, and 2 of our lovely listeners, Anna and Hayley, have been reviewing that for us, so I'll be ready to pop that into next month's podcast. And as if that wasn't enough, Claudia sent me soap and a tin and socks and a bag and yarn and yarn, and it's beautiful. So she sent me, so I don't have a lot of yarn from American dyers, and she sent me a fingering sock weight skein from Anzula Luxury Fibres, and it's in this gorgeous chartreuse green. They've called it avocado, but I wouldn't say it's as soft as avocado, and it's 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere and 10% nylon. And I don't think I've worked with a sock yarn that's got cashmere in it before, so that's new to me. It's called Avocado, and it's dye lot 112116, and this is my green. It's proper chartreuse green, just absolutely beautiful. And Claudia being Claudia has paired it up with the perfect 50-gram skein to go with it, which has got the same greens and those purple and blue dots and sprinkles in that I love. And that one is by Trendsetter Yarns. It's called Autumn Wind Confetti, and again that's 10% cashmere and 90% cotton. You would not know that was cotton. It's just lovely. Yeah, really, really beautiful. And that's another American yarn, and it's called Olives for Oliver. And they're so beautiful together that I think this has to be a shawl or a cowl or something, because I would only ever want to pair these up together. They're gorgeous. So my little brain is ticking over, thinking, what can I make, what can I make, what can I make? And then I forget about it for a while, and then they pop back and I think, oh, I'm going to probably design something up for these and design something really special. So yeah, lovely unexpected goodies in the post. And I love the fact that I can still get yarn even though I'm not buying it. So I'm now 6 months into not buying yarn for personal use. Of course I've had to buy some for designing, most of which I buy it and I'm using it, and then I buy the next and I use that. And I'm amazed how well I'm doing. I thought I would have more withdrawals than that, but I don't. It's fine. I think possibly because what I've asked for my birthday is for all of my family to just give me money so that I can buy yarn. And then when I head up to Scotland, I'm going to go to the Shillestair shop, which is sadly going to shut in October, but Shillestair specialise in using natural dyes on their yarn, and the lady that has been doing it for decades is retiring. And I do believe that somebody else has bought over Shillestair as a brand, and it may be the same quality. I don't know until I see what they produce, but I know that what has gone before as Shillestair will no longer be in existence. So when I head to Skye, I'm making a beeline for the Shillestair shop, and that will be what some of my birthday money is spent on. And then when we're over on Harris, we're going to take a day trip to the Uist wool mill, and I'm going to buy jumpers worth of yarn from there as well. So all of my family, when they've been asking, what do you want, what would you like for your birthday, I've said a skein of yarn. Just give me £12 to £15 so that I can buy a skein of yarn, and then I'm going to crochet one jumper and knit one jumper, and they're going to be my birthday memory jumpers, and you will have all individually bought me the yarn that I need to make that jumper. So that's what I'm up to. I love that idea, and I really like the idea that one will be knitted and one will be crocheted. So I think the Shillestair one will be the crocheted one. I'm really excited. So I need to make sure that I print the patterns off and take them to Scotland with me. So even if I can't, I can probably do the crochet one quickly, and maybe the knitted one I can at least swatch for and then crack on with it when I get back down the road when we've come home from our holiday. So although I haven't been buying yarn, birthday month, I will be buying yarn, but it's for a very specific couple of projects. So I think that's allowed. I feel like that's allowed anyway. So that is it for feeding the habit. I came out of Woolfest feeling like, oh, I haven't bought a lot. And it's because I wasn't weighed down with loads and loads of yarn, which is what normally happens. But yeah, it was a really good day, and I met Sharon from My Crochet Makes on Instagram, so hello to you. And Sharon is now coming to Edinburgh Yarn Festival as well, and is staying in the accommodation, so that'll be fab. We're gonna have so much fun doing that. So it was lovely to meet her. And then I also almost nearly bumped into Tilly Trout, who's one of my favourite podcasters. We'd been trying to meet up for a coffee that afternoon, but it took her forever to come up from Norfolk. So just as I was leaving, Tilly was coming in, so we managed about a 10-minute chat before I had to hit the road and come back home, and she was staying there that night and then going to the Yarn Festival the next day. But it was really nice to see her out and just meet so many wonderful people. But I did feel like I was a little light coming out of WoolFest, but I felt good about it. It was fine. So if any of you guys are listening or watching from Northern Ireland, I'm actually heading over to do a show in Northern Ireland at Whitehead, and that's on the 5th of August, and it's called Yarn Folk. It looks like it's going to be a really interesting show. It's just a one-day thing, and it's on from 10 till 6. I will post the information up in the show notes, but I think it's like under £6 to get into that Wool Festival. It's really a decent door price, and there are lots of indie dyers that are going to be there. I think I'm probably one of the only paraphernalia people that are going to be there. So yeah, it'd be lovely if you're based in Northern Ireland and you didn't know about it, then come along. It'd be really nice to see you there. And if you're already going, then come and say hello. I really love meeting people when I'm out and about, and sharing experiences and patterns and just having a bit of a chit chat. So it's called Yarn Folk, and it's on Saturday the 5th of August. And if you are coming, feel free to bring me coffee, because I'm getting the ferry over there at 4 in the morning. The ferry over to Northern Ireland's really expensive, and my parents live in Stranraer, which is like 11 miles from Northern Ireland across the water. So I'm going up on the Thursday night, staying with my mum and dad. We've got stuff to do on the Friday, early to bed, get up at 2 in the morning and head to Northern Ireland, and I'll try and get some sleep on the ferry, and then we arrive in at 6. So I'm going to be shattered and with matchsticks on my eyes trying to keep myself awake. And then my ferry home I think I'm on the 8 o'clock home, or maybe 8:30. I don't think I'll get back to Stranraer and my mum and dad's house until like 11:30 or something ridiculous that next night. So come to Yarn Folk and bring me coffee and cake, because I'm going to need it. So I'm going to move on to Big Up, and I have 2 things for you this time round. The first is another crochet podcast. It's by a lady called Rosina. She's in Devon in the UK, and she has a YouTube podcast. She podcasts from her living room, so it feels like you're just sitting down with her having a bit of a chinwag. It's really nice and a relaxed podcast. So I'll put links to that in the show notes. She's also a designer and works with some of the UK crochet magazines, so and she has a blog as well, but I'll add all of that detail into the show notes. The second big up that I have are 2 of my friends, Helen and Tamara, and they're doing a really cool crochet along towards the end of the summer. So it's a blog hop and a crochet along. I'm going to read out some of the details for you. So it's called the Back to School Sweater Cal, and it starts off with the blog hop and then the cal to celebrate crochet garment making and encourage lots of people to make their own garments. All of the details are going to go live on the blogs and in a Ravelry thread on the 29th of July, so coming up in this month. And the Ravelry thread that's going to be hosted in is actually the Crochet Circle Group 1. When Tamara and Helen were talking to me about what their plans were for this great project, they had talked about having a Ravelry thread, and I'd offered up the Crochet Circle one for the thread, because otherwise they would have to go through the rigmarole of opening up a group for it, trying to get members over there. So I've placed them as moderators on Ravelry for the Crochet Circle group, and they will run the thread through there. So even if you don't want to take part in the cal, but I hope you do, it you can at least still track and see what they're up to, because you'll get it through the Crochet Circle. And the blog hop starts on the 26th of August, and there will be a range of bloggers putting posts up there on all of the different elements of crocheting a garment together. I'm doing a blog on there. Lots of other people are doing them as well. People that you will have heard me talk about, designers that you will have heard me talk about are involved. It's really good what they're up to, and I'm very honoured to be a part of it and to have been asked to be part of the blog hop. So the actual CAL itself is going to run from the 16th of September to the 17th of November. There will be prizes and discounts, and Helen and Tamara have said if we've got any other makers out there that listen to this podcast and you would like to be part of the sweater CAL, then, and you would like to offer up a prize, then do get in touch with them and let them know, or get in touch with me and I'll let them know, whichever is easiest for you. And again, I'll put Tamara and Helen's contact details in the show notes. But whether you make project bags or you've got your own handmade crochet hooks or whatever it is, if it's crochet related or relatable to the craft of crochet, then offer up a prize. It would be great to see that happening. And then Tamara is also planning a physical CAL at her local yarn store. So Tamara, although she's English, she actually lives in Houston in Texas, and she works in her local fibre store. So I guess she's running the physical CAL there with her crochet group, which how great for everybody to be sat doing the same kind of project and having Tamara there for backup as well. So yeah, look out for that one. You'll get details on the Ravelry thread. It all starts kind of on the 29th of July when the thread will go live, and it will go onto their blogs, and then the actual blog hop itself starts on the 26th of August, and then the CAL runs from the 16th of September through to the 17th of November, giving you 2 months to make your garment, which should be enough time to crochet up a garment. But the whole idea is kids are back at school, you're coming into the autumn weather, and maybe it's time to start thinking about crocheting a garment. So if it's something that you've wanted to do but maybe not had the confidence to start before, come and join in. Come and read all of the blogs and look at all the patterns that people are looking at, and be part of the back to school sweater CAL. I'm so excited for these girls and for what they're doing. It's going to be a very good crochet along with lots of bells and whistles. It's good stuff. So that just leaves me with what's good. And what's good is that I've just had a really busy month. So John Arbon Mill weekend, Woolfest. I came back from Woolfest on the Friday, and on the Saturday I was doing a Raku ceramics day at the pottery that I go to. That was lots and lots of fun. And then I was down near Brighton with Jenny, going to Winky's School Fete and helping out with that. And then Jenny and I managed to meet up again to do the sheep shearing, and had a night over in Wales. And I nearly forgot, we went to see Elbow live at Delamere Forest. That was on Friday. It's just been such a jam-packed June, and I've loved it, but I'm most definitely feeling the pressure now to get everything done before I head off on holiday. So it's been great to be so busy and have so many fun activities to do, but I'm shattered. I'm so ready for a holiday. I've got so much work to do this summer as well, so I have to pull my little finger out and get on with it. And then there's just so much good engagement, and everything's really good at the moment. I also have to say thank you for people that give me some feedback on the lighting and the audio for the last podcast. I've had a bit of a play around this time round. The settings that I had were fine, and for some reason they've changed or something's happened to them. So I've had a little bit of a play around this time round. So thank you for that. Constructive feedback is always welcomed. If you think there's an issue or something that you want to cover or don't want me to cover, then I'm absolutely fine to receive that feedback. Of course, you can't make everybody happy, but constructive feedback and criticism, always welcome. Negative, less so, just move on. Frankly, if you haven't got anything good to say nothing at all. I'm saying that on the back of the fact that Ed Sheeran, whilst I'm not a fan, has decided today to come away from Twitter because he finds it to be such a negative space, which is, I think, really unfortunate, but I feel that way about quite a lot of social media. People say things online that they wouldn't dare to say to your face, and I think that's a bit of a shame. So all positive vibes welcome, all constructive feedback absolutely welcome, because I don't want to do something unless it's going to be well received and it's the kind of output that you expect to see. So thank you for that. And I think we're done. I think that's another podcast boshed. I am going to take you with me up to Harris, so I'll try and put bits and pieces up on Ravelry, and I will definitely be putting things up on Instagram. So what I'm not going to try and do is bombard you with my holiday photos, because nobody needs that. But quite a lot of my holiday is going to be wool and textiles related, and kind of boat trips and ferry trips and bits and pieces of Scotland as well, which, you know, not everyone is going to be able to experience the Outer Hebrides in their lifetime. So I will be posting a little more of that whilst I'm away, and probably posting a bit more because I'll have a bit more time on my hands. So you're coming with me whether you like it or not. You're going to have to be on my holiday with me. Right, on that note, we're done. I'm going to slurp the rest of my tea, have a little chill out for a minute, and then pack up what is a total shed hole of an office and get on to editing. It is now 4:10 and I started recording at 11:30. It's been a long one. There have been a few issues. I've been out for a walk. I've been to Waitrose. It's not exactly been a long one continuous film this time round. Yeah, c'est la vie. It's life. Right. I'm going to stop waffling. Bye bye. Love it! It's all about cactus. Right. Whoosh, Howard. Holy crap, it's 11:30. I was meant to start at 9. No. Oh. Hey, cactus.